Hi there and welcome to Bustthenet. Let's say you are starting out the game for the first time in Football Manager. It's the first time you're playing the game. So this is going to be a guide for you. And here I will try and cover some of the more important points about a good way to set the game up. Now, technical stuff like adding custom views, panels, graphics, downloading stuff and all that stuff, and all that other good stuff, where can we do it and how can we do it? Well, I'll do short little videos for that. So we don't clutter this simple guide with that information. Now, when you begin a game for the first time, assume like now we're going to France, we're going to pick up FC18, we're going to manage this club. You'll have a choice of the leagues that you can start with. It's a good idea to make sure that you can keep it balanced enough so your rig doesn't get overheated or it doesn't make your game really slow. You can of course add more leagues later if you want to. Now, what about custom databases that people offer? Once you load that custom database into your game, you will have to change the database that you're using, and you'll have to come here and you have to load that specific database. You can load a custom setup here, or you can even go inside here and add stuff like certain players from certain continents. I personally don't do that all the time, but I know people who do. Just be very careful about a custom database that you get from somebody else. Now, sometimes these work well and sometimes they don't. I have had more bad experiences than good ones with this. Once you start the game, once you've chosen your database and you've added in your leagues, you start the game. Then you come to an option to choose your manager. You can either handle all your tasks yourself or you can assign the job to other people. I typically like to I don't like handling the media, I just hand it over to somebody else. The next thing you can do is set up your what do you look like and then get to the first important screen. Now this affects your dynamics. Now I would recommend that if it's the first time you're playing the game, suggest the badge based on the club you're managing. Don't be a hero because it's your first game. You don't want to make it very hard for yourself. You might see people out there going, all right, I'm going to start the game without any badges, but trust me, it's going to make it very, very hard. So base this on your level of how comfortable you are with the game. I find that if you want to make it a big challenge, you think that you want a real hardcore challenge, then give yourself no badges, but expect the game to be a lot harder, especially if you decide to manage a top level side. The key here is to match the reputation of your club. So we've gone with badges that are suggested based on the club that I'm managing. Then you save the file and you'll be introduced to your first screen. Here we go to FC18 and we've been told that we need to develop players using the club's youth system. Pretty interesting start. And you'll be told what the responsibilities of all the staff are. If you decide that you want to change some of the responsibilities, you can do it from here. But now let's cover the main important screens. The first things that you do when you join a club. Immediately, what you want to do is check your finances. What have you got to play with? You got 1.7. Your transfer budget is very small. You're already spending more than your current wage budget, which gives you a fairly big, sizable challenge. Your scouting budget is very small. It's only 277,000. Now, this is not the smallest. I've seen smaller than this. So you want to make sure that you're managing your finances. So these are things that you have to keep abreast of. So don't go out there and scout to your heart's delight. The next thing you want to do is you'll be brought into the game and you could continue with your inbox and you can respond now. You can meet the assistant manager and the assistant manager will carry you through a few interviews. And this is basically a way for you to get to know the club. And it's a great way to get into the game and meet your backroom staff. And then you come to the screen. Would you like me to help you with any tasks at the club? Now, if you want him to help you with anything, go ahead. The more you do, the more deeper you get involved into this game. There's one thing though you don't let him do. You do not ask him to set up opposition instructions. You can ask him to assist the press conferences and even ask you to assist with the reserve and youth teams and with team talks, maybe even with training. But basically, don't let him touch opposition instructions because it affects your tactics, and this is something that you want to avoid. Alright, once you go through the first couple of screens, you will then have a chance to sit down and get your hands dirty with the club. The first thing you want to do is you want to go and check out what your finances are with the club. Here we will see what the transfer budget is, more importantly, your scouting budget. and your wage budget. Already we know that we can't really go out there and sign players because we have an issue with our wage budget. We don't have any more room to sign players. So this will tell you whether you can sign players. The only way you're going to be able to sign players is if you loan some of your players out or sell them. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to look at your staff and what do you have currently available to you. You have room to get 3 more staff here, coaches. Now scouts, as long as you definitely will need 1 data analyst. So you want to fill up as all these slots if you can. Right, get 1 data analyst. Now here we have a problem. When you come to your medical staff, make sure that you have a head of sports science and make sure you have physios. Physios will help you treat your players who are injured. Now, if you don't have physios, you really need to go out there and get some physios. And you need to get a head of sports science and sports scientists, at least one of each, because these guys are going to help you with prevention. Whenever there is a player who's going to be have a high susceptibility to injury, these are the guys that are going to tell you that information. You don't have these guys, then the physios will double up. The head physio will give you this information. But I recommend that you get a head of sports scientists and at least two physios for your team. This is the bare bones minimum that you need. When you first start out, you visit the board, look at the board request column. Don't make requests, just understand how you can improve your club. You can improve your club with all these data facilities, training facilities, youth facilities. Networking allows you to improve your youth recruitment and bring better young players into the club. Your stadium, well, we don't need to build and buy a new stadium because financially you're not ready for that yet. The next thing you do is you go to your team report. Now, your team report is just going to give you very decent information on what your club is like. And then you look at your squad depth. Now, your initial formation will be the one that you have set up earlier in your profile. So it will come out as a 4-3-1-2. Here, we see a 4-3-1-2, and they've given us a brief description of what the players are like. You can easily go in here and then do an analysis based on these players alone. And you'll find out what they're like just by mousing over. It's a very one of the quick ways of doing this. You get all your players lined up pretty well for the formation that you prefer. Eventually, if you go to the tactics and create a custom formation, what you will do here is you change it to custom roles, and then all the roles that you set up in your system, every player will be assessed based on that role. This is a fantastic tool which I like in the game. The next thing you'll do is go to team report comparison and find how your boys stack up against the rest of the league. Now, I really can't stop talking about mentals. So when it comes to defenders, you want to look at stuff like positioning, anticipation, and concentration, important mentals, and then after that, you want to look at physicals before technicals. So go through these attributes and see how they compare to the rest of the league. The whole idea here is to find out what the number that you are aiming for. So in terms of positioning, we're looking at 13.67 to beat, right? If you want to challenge for the title. And then most people seem to think that you should settle for average. No, I will tell you right out the gate, you aim for 13.67. If you want to do well in this game, you aim for the best numbers. Now, does this mean that you have to go and sign players? No, it at least tells you what you should expect. So here, if I'm looking at the off the ball for the strikers, for example, for the league, we know that the strikers off the ball is 17. That's very high. And my positioning for my defenders is only 13. So I know that the rest of the strikers in the French league, they're very good at finding spaces and working the ball. And this will mean that my defenders are going to be challenged to handle this kind of players. So chances are, out of the gate, I may not even be able to use the 4-3-1-2. I may have to think of a system that has a DM. This alone tells me that whether I need a DM or not. It's very important that you have some kind of a view set up for your game. If you're a new player, having a good view could be the difference, because it allows you to analyze your team very quickly. I have a few views that are available on my Steam Workshop if you're not sure on how to get not sure on how to start it or how to do it. But you can customize your current view here, and then you can drag items from the left pane to the right pane, and this will then pop up here. What you do is you can auto size all the columns and look nice and pretty. Here we got a BT. We have this view called my DNA for support, where I put important attributes for support. Doesn't mean that you have to go and get 17 for everything here, but this gives you a way to analyze your team very quickly. And then what you then do is you look at your players and you see from your midfielders and from the guys in the middle of the park whether they have good positioning, off the ball concentration, anticipation, how they play. So this is going to be a fantastic way for you to get started. getting a custom view is really, really important. So if you've gotten some custom views from the Steam Workshop, you'll have to import them into the game. So when you go in here, hit import, and you'll see little icons like this that are from the Steam Workshop. So if you can pick these up, this will go into you'll hit the load, and they will load into your game, and they'll pop up right here. Makes it very easy. So this is how you'd analyze your team. The next thing you want to do is you probably end up going to meet your dynamics, talk to your players, understand where you sit. As you can tell, I've just joined the club. Only 2 players support me. This is going to be very important. Dynamics is about winning your team over. Now, if you want to, if some people claim that this is really hard, actually it's very, very easy. What you're going to do is you're going to have these views set up for first team and key player and rotation, right? So when you look at your entire team, you'll find that some players are expecting to play a lot. So these 2 players are expecting to play 60% of all games. First team players, 50%, and rotation players will expect to play at least 40% of games. So this means in the last 10 to 15 matches, key players want 60%. What you will then do is you put this information in the back of your mind whenever you are setting up your tactic and you're playing your tactic. These players you're gonna have to play them. If you don't play them, they get unhappy. First team players expect to play half of the matches in the last 10 to 15. So you're gonna have to handle those players as well. So how you handle dynamics is based on winning these players over and making sure that they play the games. Once they start supporting you and you start winning matches, these influential players, when they start to come onto your side, you can even use them to win over other players who may be complaining in the background. You can send these influential players to talk to them first. Chances are it's going to work. The other thing you want to remember in this game when it comes to dynamics is making sure that you don't make promises that you can't keep. And don't just go and change a squad player status because you think, I'm not going to make him a key player. Remember that when you sign these players, or these players were signed early on contracts, and there's a little squad status on that contract that says something like key player. So if he's a key player and you go, I'm going to make this guy into a backup player, man, shit, I'm going to make him rot here. Trust me, it's not going to take very long for that guy to turn around and tell you to go shove it. So if that happens, you're going to have a player problem and you could get out of a job, which is one of the reasons why choosing your profile at the start is very important if it's the first time you're playing the game. Once you get used to dynamics, trust me, it is really easy. Dynamics is certainly the easiest aspect of this game. After we've done our analysis of our players and we know what we can look out for, we can go to the tactics screen. Now, when you get to the tactics screen, which I've also done a tactical creator guide, I'm just going to go very quickly and just go, okay, fine. Assume now that we really can't play a system which has got a 4-3-1-2 because our positioning is very bad. You can come in here, either load a tactic that you've downloaded from the web, or you can set it to a formation like a 4-1-3-2. Here we know that probably I'm going to be playing a 4-1-3-2 with these guys with a DM. We want it to be narrow. Okay. Then you can set up a tactic just like this. Generally, I prefer having a playmaker at the back, and then I'll put a ball-winning midfielder on this side. We'll stick in a wing-back on attack on this side. We'll have a, boom, this is just nice. We'll have a full-back on support on this flank. We'll have a central maybe a central midfielder on support. Sounds good. Then we'll have this set up. Okay, so we've done a simple rudimentary tactic. We want to go and play. The first time you play, you want to set it up. Just keep a simple tactic. Don't have any PIs, TIs. Get to know your players. It's pre-season. It's perfect. Do a quick pick. Players are on holiday. You can't really do it right now, but this gives you a brief tactic that you've already set up. Then go to your training. In pre-season, you want to make sure that your workload is heavy. Slide this training all the way to the max. Don't give them any rest days. Match tactics could be a good start if you want to get them to work on a match tactics. Set it to high. Make sure that the load is going to be heavy to medium, so that individual workloads all the players are at least heavy. Now, if it becomes very heavy, you have a problem. As you can see, the match is running. Your calendar will show that your preseason only starts on the 25th of June. Once the players start returning to the club, which usually happens on the eve of preseason, you'll get your first chance to get into the Dynamics module. So go out there, introduce yourself to the team. Now, be very careful when you get to the screen. Don't make promises. We know that we are going to be very close to battling against relegation. So introduce yourself, be very calm. I'm very positive for our chances. We can qualify Euro Cup. Doesn't seem like it. I think we can finish the top half of the season. I don't think so. I think we can finish in mid-table this season. All right. Yeah, maybe. But I strongly believe that there is enough ability in this squad for us to avoid being drawn into the relegation battle this season. This is what I'm going for, because we've seen the odds. The odds say they're not very far away from the relegation. So we've gone in, we said the right things. It's a perfect response. We still have important players. We have this player we have to win over, and this players we have to win over. This core group needs to be won over. So, but we've gotten off to a good start. Then you're going to get a chance to set up preseason. Now, typically, I like to play as many as 7 to 8 games in preseason. Usually, in 1 week, I play 2 matches. Now, this is going to be done with as many players as you can possibly squeeze in. So bring as many players as you can, even if they're under 23. The whole idea here is to see how your team plays with that system. So you can create variations of your tactic. You can create a camping tactic, an attacking tactic, and a defensive tactic. Now, what about if you never even played football before? Now, if you've never played football and you have no clue what football is like, then pick one of the default tactics. Don't go out there and try and create a tactic if you don't understand a tactic. You want to see how that tactic plays out. The default tactics aren't that bad. You just want to make sure that you use common sense, right? Now, when you pick up a role, you want roles to work in conjunction with another. You don't want to create an attack duty and go out there thinking that attack duties are the only way to score goals. No, you can have a solid tactic with no attack duties and still win games. The whole idea here is to have enough balance, bringing players in close support. That you do with balance of the right duty. So you're gonna have, like, in a certain quadrant, like on the left side of the pitch, you say you want to build play up on the left, then you have enough support duties there all hanging about. You know, everybody's not too far away. They can play the ball to each other. Then on the other flank, maybe you want 1 or 2 attack duties in the attacking third to attack space, and you got a wing back. Maybe he's going to be overlapping. You don't need to use the overlap shout if you use a narrow formation, because they're naturally going to overlap. Things like this. But try this out in the game. Try this out in preseason. Watch your players. If you notice a player is always dribbling and you're losing the ball, either change his role that he doesn't have, so that he doesn't have to dribble, or use the PI, dribble less. This is how you set things up. You observe during those matches. If you see a player trying to make passes, he can't make those passes because players aren't coming close to him. He's finding it hard to pass the ball to somebody else. Then consider having a support duty beside him. If he still can't find that player, then check the attributes of the player that's playing again beside him. His eyes off the balls too low. Is he got a defend duty and he doesn't want to move forward? Things like this. You need to observe the game, and you need to observe the actual transitions in the match. I've done a transitions video. It's on the channel. It applies to the game. So if you have questions on creating that, then look at those videos. I also have videos on tactics as well, where I explain tactics and how they should be playing. I draw the tactic up. I explain how players are going to be moving. I've got a 4-1-3-2. I've got so many tactics. The information, the build, the logic behind creating those systems is still relevant. You can use those videos if you haven't played football before. It explains how those tactics work, and that will also give you a good grounding. And finally, for my patrons, yes, I'll create 3 different versions of tactics for you to use as well, so that you can get accustomed to how, if you want to set things up in a specific way. So we've got all these tactics, and I've even done them on the getting started videos as well, where I create different versions of a tactic, and I talk about how you can camp with one, and how you can attack with another, and how you can defend with a few role changes. So preseason is a chance for you to find out whether your players can fit into the system and play the system. To me, if it's your first time you're playing this game, preseason is very important. One trick you want: the last 2 games in preseason, find the shittiest competition you can find, get your morale up. Hopefully your boys can bang in 8 to 9 goals. Let them hammer the living daylights of another team. Get their anything to get that little boost in morale will be will be helpful. So don't pick Bayern Munich as your last game. All right. So if you're playing FC Metz, pick some team that is playing Sunday football outside a church. That'll be good enough competition. You need cannon fodder. If it's the first time you're playing the game, you have no clue what to do when it comes to trading. Very simple. Assign it to your S-man. Best advice I'm going to give you. If you know roughly what you want to do, okay, this is what you do straight out. Make sure that you have enough coverage, that their loads are light. This means hiring more coaches. You get one coach to go right across, do everything. Then you find 5-star coaches or 4-star coaches. Make sure that these 3 stars or above. They're pretty easy to find in the game. There's a calculator. You can Google it. You'll find it. FM trading calculators. I have one. It's the easiest thing to find in the game. So use that. Go and get yourself some good coaches. Do a staff search. Put an ad out, bring them in, take your time and fit them in. Make sure that the workload is light if you can manage it for the coaches so that they can maximize the time they spend with the player to develop that said player. Finally, with your squad views as well, you want to have a training one too. I have a training one. It's brilliantly set up for me. Workload, I know this is medium. That means my boys can be pushed a bit more, so I want it to be heavy so we can get the most development out of them. Then I can set up their roles. If you're not sure, don't do anything here, right? If you know what you're doing, go in and set it up, because a player is still going to develop based on the position you play him in. Then every time you set an additional focus, basically you're telling him to work on a specific area of his game. You can use the S-man's recommendations, or you can just watch a game and see whether he needs any help. And every time you add additional focus or new player trait, their workload gets heavier. So you want to keep checking this to make sure that you don't push them, the wrong way. Finally, injury susceptibility. If over time your manager, your sports scientist will come in and say, dude, this guy is going to break a leg every time he goes out there. So if you got very high, I have had very high before, and they get injured in preseason even. So during preseason, these guys don't play for 90 minutes. In fact, in preseason, nobody plays for 90 minutes. Everybody plays for 45 minutes. You're happy as a beaver. The moment they pick one small injury, you take them off, you protect them. So you want to make sure that you play them enough so that you get a good idea of how they do. Generally, the first 11 are the ones that send out. I look at them and I go, okay, fine, I got an idea with what these guys are doing. Then I throw in other players, see how they perform, see whether my initial suspicions are right. That's how preseason is done. Get the view done and you're sorted. Finally, we come to one of the last few screens. Now, scouting. Scouting can be a massive nightmare. I'll tell you why. First, lots of screens, lots of clicking going on. Nightmare for people who've never been here before. I can understand that. 2 ways you can manage scouting. You can reduce the nightmare level by giving it to somebody else to do. So ask your scout, give it to your chief scout or your director of football. Tell him, go and do it for me. He comes in for the recommendation. You base your decisions based on the recommendations, right? Now, this is where it gets tricky. You have a budget. You find that out here. Over here, you have a senior package. You click on this. This is Europe. These are the countries that we are going to be doing our scouting. So you wanted to find out what your package is like. Come over here and you see Europe. You get this budget. Now, this is important to understand. Now, if you pay X amount of dollars, you're going to get this is going to come from your scouting budget. At the moment, 180 and 74K is almost 250K, right? How much room do you have left to maneuver? There ain't a lot of room to maneuver because your budget is 277K. Why do I say there's not a lot of room to maneuver? If you go out there and you come to your scouting, you want to make a decision very quickly. So if I see this player, Alexi Desart, right? So if I get his card, you have to look at this and go see enough of his attributes to make a decision on whether you want him or not. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you don't need to scout everyone. Go into your tactic, determine which are the players you really, really need. And then go to your general focus and assume right now that we have a tactic and we only... I think the weakest area of our team is a DM or a central midfielder. Then go and look for a central midfielder. Maybe he's a ball-winning midfielder. Player style, we want him to be a bit more physical than the rest. We've determined that that's the player that we want. The scouting range has been set up. You can set your job. Tell them to focus on Europe. Give them a typical duration of 2 weeks. And set the focus and they're off. Now all the reports that are going to come in, most of the reports are going to come in based on that, and you will have other reports as well. Now if you're not looking for a DM and you see we have a DM here and there's not enough, tell them to keep scouting. But once you get to a certain point where you have enough attributes showing, you don't want to go to 100%. You don't need to go to 100% because every time you send one of your scouts out to get more information on this one player and get videos and get 100%, the damn cost goes up. And before before you know it, you've spent all your money. You'll see this remaining over here, right? This thing is gonna clock down like there's no tomorrow. Before you know it, you have no more money left, and when you have no more money, your database is going to default to the lowest levels. And this is huge, because what's going to happen is your database will drop right up here to like the lowest package. All right, you may even get no package, and the next thing you know, the only information you have is the one that you have, you already have, like you scouted, and that's the information. But a lot of the other information is just going to disappear. So you're going to have to be very judicious about how you scout. So be very careful about sending out all your scouts. You don't need too many scouts. You need your scout, the opposition. You need your analyst reports for your games. But when it comes to deciding who you want to bring into the club, be very focused about it. And you don't need to take it to 100%. So you just need about 60 to 70%, and that's it. Once you've done that, stop scouting or add him to the shortlist. How do you stop scouting? Acknowledge this button or discard and add to shortlist. Now, if you are a player that has the opportunity to offer trials to some of these players, now we've got one player coming in, they say it's 60%. According to the scouts, the recommendation is pretty high, 60%. So I'm going like, wow, this means he's at least a 3.5 star. Okay, maybe he's good enough. All right, Melvin Naves. You see this option here, offer trial? Hit the offer trial button. He comes in, he goes on trial for a few weeks. Brilliant. During the trial period, you can assess him. You don't have to scout him anymore. He's in your club. So if you get a chance, if he's good enough, you give him, you sign him on a contract. It saves you time, saves you a lot of money. And the other thing you want to do is, if you have, if you see players that you can't afford, like here we have a value at 275k. This is a player we can afford. So, and if we need him, we scout him. But if I don't need him, like he might be a goalkeeper we don't need, so we discard him. So this is how you manage your scouting. These cards are a money trap, right? Basically, you can get into a whole tailspin and just have no more money. It's a slight problem in FM18 because people had expected the scouting, the way scouting was set up so that we have all the information in the database. As it turns out, we don't have all the information in the database. How we get more information on these players is via the scouting. It's a great way to prevent exploits, but it's going to make it very challenging for players, especially if you're playing lower league football. Lower league football is going to be a huge challenge for players, but there is a workaround. It's actually quite easy to handle lower league football. The lower you go, the easier it gets to handle these kind of things, because you don't really use scouts in lower league football, right? I don't, at least I never have. I just go and trial the living daylights out of the whole world, but it could work. So these are some of the tips that I use in getting my team ready, or rather getting myself off to a good start. You want to be very careful with scouting. You want to do a good job at the start with your preseason. You want to set up your custom use in the game. You want to make sure that you have the right staff employed. You want to also ensure that the workload of your players is rightly set at heavy. Your training should be well set up in preseason. You should do match preparation during preseason. Once preseason ends, you're about to start, begin working on actual focuses like attacking movement, defensive set pieces, and attacking set pieces, because this give you bonuses ahead of matches. You also want to make sure that when you're playing these games at the start, you don't be too gun-ho with your tactics. Look at the squad, look at the season preview. Where do you stand? Are you a relegation candidate? If you are, then expect a lot of teams to come attacking you. And if you take the early goal lead, don't start celebrating, because if you are a relegation candidate, they are going 4-2-4. If they go 4-2-4, you are in trouble. So watch my guides on how I do my playthroughs, and with teams that end up in that kind of a situation, and you might get some ideas. Well, I hope you enjoyed this beginner's guide to Football Manager. I wish I could say more, but then again, this whole video ended up being a 1.5 hour video, and it'd be too damn long. So yeah, I'm going to do shorter versions for individual segments, and I already have a getting started to FM18 guide where I talk about specific things a lot more detail, and I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, you know to find me on Twitter at Bustthenet or addicted2fm.com, my website. Once again, I'd like to thank my patrons for their continued support of this channel. You make these kind of shows possible for the rest of the community. You guys take care and have a good one. Bye-bye.